Hello everyone, my name is Phawx. The Steam Deck OLED has just been announced. I should have my Steam Deck OLED in a little bit. It's being shipped to me now. I should get it well before the 16th, well before the launch date, so I should have a lot of information there. There are a few things that I want to talk about. I've watched all of the reviews that have already come out and the information that's come out there. There's some interesting information that I want to talk about. Specifically, let's bring up one of the images from what Digital Foundry revealed is the wattage difference. This is the total watt power difference between the Steam Deck OLED versus the Steam Deck LCD, which is what we're all naming it at the current moment. So we'll see how this is going to progress and what types of names people come up with it. Let's go ahead and just jump into the webpage real quick to get a quick idea of what's going on here. So Lawrence Yang has said that the code name for this has been called the Orb, and eagle-eyed viewers will notice that the intro video has a bunch of Steam Decks displayed in an orb-like structure. So it's a little nod to the name there, which is actually pretty cool to see. But let's go ahead and start investigating some of the differences that they have with the Steam Deck OLED specs. Okay, up first, let's take a look at the layout differences between the Steam Deck OLED versus the Steam Deck LCD. And largely when you look at it, you're like, that really isn't all that different looking. And you'd be right, for all intents and purposes, it seems to have exactly the same dimensions and look and feel. However, the Steam Deck OLED is having a larger display area because they're making use of those gigantic runways that were the bezels on the Steam Deck LCD. This is something that I've been asking for a while, so I'm glad that Valve basically worked within that space that they were already in to maximize the screen space. This is going to be a recurring theme of min-maxing every component of the Steam Deck LCD to get to the Steam Deck OLED. This is something that I have been always asking. If you go and check my receipts for every video of what I would like on a new Steam Deck, it would be min-maxing every portion of the Steam Deck, and that is what we're getting here. Largely, you're not going to be looking at this for any type of major performance games. This is not a generational performance improvement because there is only a small improvement on the silicon process here, but largely the chip and the CPU and the GPU are basically the same. There are some differences, and we need to talk about that. Again, what has been already highlighted based on an image from Digital Foundry, we'll talk about that more in a minute. The architecture for CPU and architecture for GPU are exactly the same, and the clock speeds are exactly the same. The only thing that's different here is we went from a 7nm process node to a 6nm process node. Now, this is something I want to talk about right now and something that I already addressed before. Since we're already talking about this particular component here, one thing that we have to address is that only from Digital Foundry's testing, I have to still test mine, which should be coming in soon, is that we can see a very generous improvement on total system power. This total system power, when you take a look at it, 26.1 watt is what the Steam Deck LCD does. Typically, you're going to be around 27 watt average if you just boost TDP to the max and do uncapped frame rates. That'll be the total system power that averages out on the Steam Deck, which gets you to around 85 minutes of battery life, generally speaking. So when we take a look at what the Steam Deck OLED is doing, we can see that it's using around 23.5 watts average. This is significant, even though it doesn't seem like it's all that significant. The big part here is that we are getting closer to what I originally anticipated for the original Steam Deck. Over a year ago, I did a video on why the Steam Deck TDP was wrong. Now, that title is very clickbaity, and I went into in-depth on why it was technically correct, but we were using more power than we were anticipating, especially compared to other handhelds at the time. When 6800U came out, largely the power use was similar to how the Steam Deck was working, which is odd because they were boosting in such a way that they were using more power than they were typically, insofar as how we look at total system power. Now what we're looking at with the Steam Deck OLED is that has been framed back. So combining this with the increase of the battery size on the Steam Deck OLED going from 40 watt hour to 50 watt hour, a 25% increase, that is substantial. Both the savings that we're getting from the APU and the 25% increase on battery, what this is getting you to is you're going to be getting to a point where you're going to be getting over 2 hours of battery life almost all the time when pushing it to the limit. So 2 hours and 10, 2 hours and 20 minutes is something that you should generally expect instead of having 85 minutes. That is a huge increase in minimum battery life. That is fantastic. So I love what they did there. Another increase that you're going to see here is the boost to the RAM speeds here. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. This isn't any better RAM than when the Steam Deck was out. When the Steam Deck came out, technically, there was RAM that was available to go to 6400 megatransfers. Effectively, what you're seeing is just a clock speed increase on the RAM itself. So we were going at what was basically 687 megahertz on the Steam Deck LCD, and now that's running at 800 megahertz. So this is a bit of a boost here, and Digital Foundry is already reporting that they're getting differences in performance. Now, I don't know if the Steam Deck LCD that they were running on was SteamOS 3.5 and what SteamOS OLED was doing. That wasn't really clear to me, so that part is not absolutely understood. I'm going to be doing my own testing and reviews at 5 watt, 10 watt, and 15 watt, so we have a good clean picture of that as well. But this is something that it is default running at, and it is nice to see. It's just a small improvement that technically could be possible on the Steam Deck LCD as well. Obviously, the big part here is the OLED display. Now, there's a lot to unpack here and a lot of things that I know myself that I've been trying to tell everyone in the handheld community about what we're expecting here. Now, Linus Tech Tips has already confirmed that there is no VRR display, which very much leads to it being a MIPI-based display. Since this is MIPI-based and not EDP, you are not going to have VRR. VRR is going to be something that is only on the EDP. It's a DisplayPort standard. MIPI has something that is like VRR, but it is not VRR. It can go to different frequencies and kind of lock there. Typically, that's what the Steam Deck already does now. So what we're getting is something that is an OLED panel with full RGB stripes, so not pen-tile display. This is also another big deal here. They're keeping the same 16:10 aspect ratio here, so it does max out at 800p, but this is fine. What we all know is that what the Steam Deck's APU, and largely even the 7840U, the latest AMD APUs, really going more than 800p is kind of a waste. Yeah, you can run them at 1080p, but it's not really worth it. You're going to have massive diminishing returns. 7840U and those newer platforms tackle that a little bit better, but overall, the Steam Deck's going to have its best efficiency still around that 720p, 800p mark anyway. So this is still fine to see, and having such a very nice display matters more. The very interesting part here is that it is 1000 nit HDR. Now, this is something that I've said out loud, that going to HDR is a tough problem on a handheld. If we take a look at HDR on LCDs, because that backlight panel has to brighten up so much, that will consume a tremendous amount of wattage. What we're seeing here is that even from DF's own testing, is that when they have that HDR panel on, that the amount of power being consumed isn't all that much. So a question that I have already reached out to Valve about is if they already have those numbers available so that I don't have to try to figure that out on my own, if they could give me the maximum power use of the LCD panel versus the maximum power use of the HDR panel. Now, that is not such a fair question because maxing out an OLED HDR panel, OLED can be dynamic based on its per pixel emissiveness. It is emitting light per pixel. So anything that's dark will be able to save power and anything that's bright will be able to boost. So you'll be able to more uniformly spend power in an HDR scope in that way. So that's something that is really cool about OLED, and a lot of different things have been doing it that way. But if we were to just take a look at a bright white screen or something that's going to be very bright all the time and HDR, I am very curious as to what the types of power that we're looking at when using that. So that is a question that I'm going to be asking, and hopefully I can get an answer to that. Lastly, it can go up to 90 hertz. Now, this is significant because of the new frame rate slider that is on the Steam Deck. Why this matters is it's basically simplified the user experience while giving a better experience. When you just set it to 40 FPS, what it's going to do is going to run a 40 FPS container inside an 80 hertz package. So you basically be fitting two 40 hertz frames inside of 80 hertz. So this will improve latency and how it feels and how it's going to display, all with having the same power saving characteristics as running at 40 FPS. This is huge. It's really great. In terms of a refresh, what we're seeing is min-maxing all over the place while still using the same type of chipset. This is really awesome to see for multiple reasons, because they are min-maxing the current package that they already have, making a refresh model so that they can have something fresh with competitors on the market that are coming out there, which aren't really pushing the needle all that much. Yeah, you can get 30, 40% better performance, but you're spending a lot more power. Inside the same power scope, especially at between 5 and 10 watt, the Steam Deck remains king, and it's going to be continually the same here with this newer model. Also having OLED and a 90 hertz display, overall this is a fantastic user experience package and something that I would continue to recommend to people overall. I should have my Steam Deck OLED in soon. This is very exciting news. I hope this was informative. As always, guys, thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.